If you're not coming home at night and turning it all off, having that together time and sitting down and grounding yourself and getting rid of all that day that was behind you, then you're being self-destructive. Your nerves are going to vibrate up. You're not going to get a good night's sleep. If you don't have a good night's sleep, you're not going to be productive. If you're not productive, you're going to start to lose sales. You're going to lose customers. In sales, people depend on you. So many people are like, oh man, this dude's sitting in his lawn chair watching us roof. I wonder what he's going to be an engineer about. He's not being an engineer. He wants to sit there and he wants to be a part of the experience of getting this. He spent, even in the shingle world, you're spending $20,000+.
Yep.
You know, there's only a couple things in life that cost that much: a wedding, a divorce, and a roof.
Many times a homeowner gives a ring to the roofer in case of a storm, and they have these dollar signs in their eyes. But only 1% of the roofers ask them, are you okay? How's your family? How are your kids? What are the things that you feel roofers are doing wrong in sales nowadays, particularly as a material supplier, because you see them as well?
Just because you've done something the same way for 20 years doesn't mean you ever did it right. You learned it wrong. You're doing it wrong. This isn't the right way. Humble yourself, have that humility, strip the ego, open the heart, and shine. That's basically it.
And that's what I feel business owners need to do as well. Like, if you find a sea and you know you are a river, then you just have to let the sea flow. And that slate roofs have no particular material warranty. So how do homeowners still choose slate roofs over these asphalt shingles?
Proper maintenance is something that's required on every warranty out there, right? Even your television set that hangs on the wall, if you didn't clear the dust off of it and it burned up a capacitor, guess what? Negligence. You didn't clean your TV. If you don't have your roof inspected once a year, you don't fix nail pops, bad caulking, metal that moved away, negligence. You didn't maintain your roof. Does that affect the warranty fully? No, only if that issue was caused based on that particular negligence. But does it open the door to allow for the warranty to be denied? Well, of course, because you neglected to maintain your roof.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Roofing Millionaires podcast, the only roofing podcast where we don't promote anyone and we don't sell you anything. In this episode, we are sitting down with Thomas Sulzmann from Da Vinci Roofscapes, and we have talked about manufacturer warranties, roofing materials, sales, and so many more things. Thomas opened up about how his wife helped him to start off from rock bottom to becoming one of the sales experts in one of the best roofing material companies. But what really made this conversation special was how Thomas dug deep into the spiritual side of things and how he related spirituality to roofing sales. If you are in roofing and you are looking to align the trinity of your mind, body, and soul, this conversation has so much value for you and you will definitely love this. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Roofing Millionaires podcast, Thomas. It's great to have you here. And I apologize for the delay in the recording because last time I wasn't feeling well. So how are you feeling today? And how do you normally spend your Thursdays?
Feeling really good today. Normally spend Thursday working appointments, following up on leads, providing takeoff reports to help contractors out with making sure they have preliminary numbers that they can go off of. And got a good workout in first thing this morning. Feeling good today, even shaved.
Okay, so would you give a little brief or tell us a little about your background and how did you end up in roofing, so we just have a context?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Thomas Sulzmann. I work for Da Vinci Roofscapes, which is a premium product that mimics like shake and slate. And this journey has been a interesting one. I grew up in a family of salespeople. So on my mother's side of the family, it's now third, generation of roofing. And of course, they didn't want me to get into roofing, anything but roofing, be like a tech guy or something, right? But just like it's in our DNA, in our blood, we just get into it no matter what. But throughout the process, it's been, interesting, right? I grew up in a family where sales is mainly what everybody did. My mom was a nurse, like most mothers, in the day and age, nursing was the easy choice. And then my dad, he worked a couple jobs and then eventually moved over to a place called Valley Ford, which was a dealership in the Cleveland area. And it's expanded into like heavy trucking. So I grew up essentially in a showroom. Back then you didn't really you had the community watch you, right? Your neighbor could watch
Mhm.
you one day, the other neighbor watched you, your grandma watched you. And when no one could watch you, you got taken to your parents' work and you hid under the desk or played in the showroom and so I got to hang out in finance and insurance office. I got to watch the detail bay, go to the mechanic shop, see the auto jobbers back in the parts department, sit in the showroom, read brochures all day. So everything that's programmed into my brain has been, based on an automotive business. And then I went to school for automotive dealership management. I got 2 degrees. I got a baccalaureate in business management and then one in marketing. And then my concentration was an extra year of going through dealership management school, which where I went, they ran with the Chrysler program back then. And I learned everything from the front office to the back office to running a
Mhm.
place. And when I left, I fulfilled my dream and I opened up a car dealership. I
Okay.
had I had in-house financing. I had
Mhm.
regular financing sources, and I had everything from highline vehicles down to your typical trade-in, pay cash, drive it till the wheels fall off type stuff. But then, cash for clunkers hit, and it removed a lot of the pre-owned vehicle inventory out there and put a strain on the businesses. And then, of course, the housing market crashed, and certain other things happened in life that left me without a job, without a business, and eventually without a place to call my own. So my wife was with my mother-in-law, and
Mhm.
that's where my son was at. And then I was sleeping on the floor of my parents' house, and my dad told me, he said, "Hey, I sell heavy trucks to this place in
Mhm.
Cleveland, a distributor, and maybe you should, see if you could work over there and get into roofing materials." So I interviewed for that, got the position, worked my way through calling on dead accounts, climbing on roofs to see how roof loading was done, working, in the warehouse, sweeping a little bit just to learn everybody's position, what they did, why they did it, what they were passionate about. And then once I excelled past the certain quotas, then I started to receive, like house accounts to work. And eventually I moved out to the Toledo area and they opened up a greenfield there. And then I was there, basically first territory sales manager. While I was there, the only products that they carried was the GAF line and the Certainteed line and the shingles. They didn't have Owens Corning at the time. And
Mhm.
obviously, Owens Corning's backyard is Toledo. So I had to pivot, turn, figure out a way to position myself as more than a relationship builder, order taker type person. I had to become a sales professional at that point. So I started to take some market share out there and worked it as hard as I could. And then towards the end, that's when the manufacturer GAF had looked at me,
Mhm.
asked if I would interview. So I interviewed. They hired me. It was amazing because there were like 43 other people, interviewing at the same time. But I guess they saw a glimpse of that entrepreneurial spirit still left in me, even though I went through all that stuff. And this worked for them until COVID hit. Once COVID hit, everybody's locked inside a house and what do? We go out, we visit job sites, we go visit contractors, we do classes, entertaining, everything that comes with it. And being in the house and trying to do things over the phone just wasn't helping with my stress levels. I'd grown the territory quite a bit in the period of time that I was there. And it was at the point where I needed an assistant, a junior is what we would call it. And now we're all locked down. Everything's on freeze, right? So I pivoted then and I was offered a position at a company that did AI technology with drones, automatic damage identification, 3D modeling, measurements, all that stuff. It excited me like crazy because I've always been a nerd. And
Mhm.
I went right in there and just started selling software remotely, which is perfect for COVID, right? Everybody's locked up. So I was able to hop on a call like this, position the software correctly, coach them on how to use it. The hardest part was teaching them how to get their pilot license. But once we got over that hump, I saw a lot of success. And then eventually, that company, when travel opened up, had me go to the different expos, festivals. And then I started to do more of a national approach to the sales. So I started working many other states. And that's how I met some great people in the industry, like Joe Hoffman out of Hoffman Weber, Jim Zeminski, from the Omnia Group, all these awesome people that I view as my mentors. Joe, for example, he gave me a workout protocol and I lost 135 pounds in a year and a half.
Yes, I can see
And
that. You
it
are
was,
really looking slim and smart. You are not like that in your
thank you.
profile picture on Facebook. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm still working on losing it. You know, I I wouldn't say I worked any harder, after losing the weight, but I will say that when I'm done with work, I can now go
Mm,
and work on the yard, and I can go
mm,
do those honeydew projects, that my wife
mm,
has set for me. And it's
mhm,
been a really exciting journey finding that happiness within, and raising, I guess you could call it raising my vibrations, my energy
mm,
levels. And then once everything kind of opened up fully, I was traveling quite a bit, and my wife knew that our son was at that crucial age. He's getting ready to start driving, he's entering high school. So it was time to make another pivot. And a recruiter reached out to me for Da Vinci.
mm.
And I knew the product from the distributor days. I absolutely loved the
Okay.
quality of it. And
Mm,
I hopped on board with them. Fast forward to today, and here we are. So there's a journey in
okay.
a nutshell.
Okay, that gave me a lot of point to discuss. Let's just begin with that time where the markets crashed and everything was going wrong, I would say, or everything wasn't going the way that you expected it to be. Like, what were your feelings at that moment, and who helped you get out of all of that? Was it all by yourself, or you had someone who was always by your side? And how was that feeling, and how were those moments? Because I guess no one believes in you in those times, and you are sleeping on the couch. uh, you oftentimes we have depressed thoughts and we lose our self-image. We go into a
Yeah.
kind of self-pity, and we have all these traumas or downward spirals. So how was that moment, and how did you come out of that?
Well, you always hit a gutter, right? You fall all the way into the gutter and you hope that the gutter is holding you up there or you're falling down, to the end, right?
Mhm,
It was definitely a period of isolation. Obviously, you got family that, yeah, sleep on the floor, sleep on the couch, try this place. I'll put in a good word for you. Here, we'll buy you a meal, right? My wife's family was great with getting like groceries and stuff and helping us along those lines. And of course, I went into a system where, I applied for any type of assistance or financial aids that the government offered,
mhm,
which allowed to keep more food to feed the wife and child. The wife was working three jobs at the time, just three different part time ones, and I was rebuilding. Right, I had to file full blown bankruptcy. Had to go through all of those feelings that you get where you find. A lot of people would say you find failure, but I find it as stripping your ego. It's a good
okay.
way for the universe to come in and put that giant thumb right on your head and squash you down and say, okay, you know, you made it through your teenage years. You did good stuff. You did bad stuff. You made it through your college years. You did about the same. A lot of lessons that should have been learned that weren't learned. And you pushed yourself and kept going until the point of where this isn't your destiny. This isn't your path. And the universe will steer you the way it needs to steer you. And so at first, of course, like anybody else in the right state of mind, I was down on my luck, feeling like everything was against me. Everything's coming at you. But then once I started to focus on more of a spiritual path and started focusing on finding, I guess, the source of all things, right?
Eh,
So I took more of a Gnostic approach to everything, studying every ounce of religion to spiritualism to naturopathic, homeopathic ways of changing everything about me, right? So when you lose your ego, you kind of open up and you realize there's a purpose for you being here,
mhm,
and you've got to step back and take a look at the entirety of the world and emphasize with every single person and what they're going through, knowing that I've been through almost everything. The only thing I didn't go through was, being strung out on some kind of drug and taken to a hospital for an overdose, right?
mhm,
I didn't enter into the chemical side of things.
mhm.
I pushed myself towards the spiritual side of things, but I know that line is very fine for people. It's easy to go one way or the other way. And when you hit rock bottom and everything feels like it's gone at that moment, you have a choice to make. And that choice is to fulfill your pre-written destiny, which is driven by your free will choices to whatever, I guess you could call it like timeline you're going to travel, right? And how your life's going to unfold and how that flower of life will open up for you. Or you can enter your own personal hell, create that little dark place, and spend however long you're going to be in it until you realize you don't want to be in darkness, isolated in this type of place. If you didn't pass away, from those actions, you at least can always come up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a place to go, no matter what, and I look at people in a much different way than I used to. I used to they say like you find your tribe, right? So I used to find my tribe, right? The people that had the same likes as me. They want to go to the same places. They talk the same, like everything that way was the past. You grow up with a central programming that is first in your DNA. Your DNA is basically a giant hard drive, right? It contains centuries of data that is handed down, and its personalities, traits, and everything else in between. So you start predisposed with that. Then when you're born, your microbiome, which is everything for your system, is inherited from your mother as you pass through, right?
Okay.
You pick the microbiome up. And a lot of people don't have good microbiomes initially, especially in today's world of GMO foods and everything we're putting in our bodies. And so I learned about that. And I learned about it's still a journey, empathy, to really put yourself as somebody else. It's not relating to them. It's not sitting there and saying, my condolences, I'm sorry. Yeah, I went through that one time myself. No, it's really putting yourself in their shoes. What did they go through? What are they feeling? And how can you help somebody move past it? As long as they want the help. Because remember, a human being can't step on anyone's free will, just as an angel can't step on anyone's free will. You can't interfere with somebody. And when you interfere and they don't want the help, that's typically when things go awry, right? Eventually, and like I said, if they make it through, eventually they'll find their path, they'll find their way out, they'll then start to open up to that assistance. Now but when you're relating with them and you're talking with them, you could emphasize in a way to where you're on the same level as them. Your body will match their body, your breathing will match their rhythm, your hand movements will match their rhythm, your eyes will match it, everything will start to match up. That's how you know you're connected with them. And then if you're prepared yourself to be that bright, shining light, you could at that point be that beacon bright enough for them to request help. But don't push them into help, because it'll drive them into a darker place than when they're ready to receive the help. You have to be the light at the end of that tunnel before they ask for it. If you're not that shining light, keep your nose out of it and move away, right? Until a shining light comes in that does take them out of that dark place. And then you're just like these supreme beings of the universe. You're matching that higher vibrational energy level, and you're helping pull people out of the negative part of this world. I always tell people there's basically two worlds, right?
Okay.
Side by side, two different dimensional planes. And you could go down each one, and they're working, coinciding, they're parallel, they're at the same time and not at the same time. And that's why you'll see some people record a video of something, and then someone else records a video that's the exact opposite, right? You'll have someone record video of devastation, destruction of fires, for example. And then you'll have videos of people recording their neighborhood saying there were no fires. I don't know what's going on, right? And that's because different people are operating in different planes of existence within their own mind. What do you want to capture? Do you want to capture the devastation, or do you want to capture the good that comes out of things, right? You see people that pick up a camera every time there's a street fight, and then you see that other guy that comes out calms them down, shows them the error of their ways, and moves them on. So there's two different planes of existence that is working together in the same plane. And it's up to you to choose the path you want to ride on. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I have a question. Like most people, or even myself, I have read spirituality, a lot of spiritual books in my mother language, in English. When I was facing my anxiety, there was a time I discovered that there are three things that make us: the mind, the body, and the soul. Oftentimes, we just focus on the mind, but we forget the soul, whereas the soul is the core of everything, I would say. Now, the question I have
Yes.
is, most people who are even listening to this podcast here till now, if they are hearing it, they will feel that we are not talking about roofing. We are talking about spirituality. We are talking about well-being. We are talking about physical well-being. But they want to hear about roofing. They want to hear about business. They want to hear about this, that, everything. What I feel is that you can learn the sales tactics. You can learn how to create a script. You can learn how to create a follow-up system. You can learn how to increase your conversions. You can learn the NLP and all these techniques. But if you don't know what to do if something wrong happens, or if things go this, then all of that is worthless. And that's what we need to be telling people. And that's the purpose of this conversation as well. Like, if we can give even one point or one lesson to someone, and someone can relate to your conversation, and they can learn and implement that into their life, and if it can work, our job is done. So the question I have is, do you feel that those things or those spiritual learnings that you have reflected in your business and in your professional life too?
Yes, 100%. Because, like you were saying, the soul, right? The mind. So the first is alchemy of the mind. You have to, you know what alchemy is, correct? The transmutation of materials. So alchemy of the mind is transmutation of the mind. So you first have to get right in your mind, because your subconscious, it's like it's programmed to be self-destructive right off the bat. Your nerves are programmed to be self-destructive. Everything that we learn, and it goes back to our childhood, right? How many times did your parents say, we're going to go visit auntie and uncle? And you said, no, I don't want to. I'm going to go outside and play soccer with my friends.
Yeah.
No, you don't get to say no. You're coming with us, and we're going, and you're going to like it. And this is what you're wearing. So throughout our entire childhood, we're constantly programmed with, you can't tell people no. You have to work young. You have to work hard. You have to make money. You have to be a good steward. You have to go to school. You have to do this. You have to do that, right? And that's something that we don't want in our adult life. We want the ability to say no. You know, if somebody's using you to the point where you're constantly doing everything for them and you're not home with your family or yourself, you have to say no. If you're not coming home at night and turning it all off, having that together time and sitting down and grounding yourself and getting rid of all that day that was behind you, then you're being self-destructive. Your nerves are going to vibrate up. You're not going to get a good night's sleep. If you don't have a good night's sleep, you're not going to be productive. If you're not productive, you're going to start to lose sales. You're going to lose customers. In sales, people depend on you every step of the way to follow up. Let them know what the status is, any issues you run into, ideas, all that value building. You know, you have several types of salespeople. You have the order takers, right? Those are the easy ones. It's like, I was an order taker in the past.
Right.
You know, I worked at a cell phone store. You come in, tell me what cell phone you want. I sold it to you. I made a nice commission back then. It was big commission, but I didn't have to sell them. I didn't have to tell them anything, right? They already knew they wanted a phone that was mobile. They knew they wanted a phone with the snake game on it. And they wanted something like Star Trek, which was that old Motorola flip phone. So it was like all day long selling whatever was the fad at the time. So I was an order taker. Then you move into the relationship building type sales rep, which I eventually had to move into. And a relationship builder is just what it is. So it's that person that will take you out, show you a great time, pay for everything, take your team out. Let's just have fun together. Let's just talk about life. Let's watch the game, right? And then all of a sudden, I still haven't bought nothing from you. You knew that they needed to buy something. And then you go to their house or you drop off a sample and they've got whatever it was you were going to sell them already installed. Because of your friendship, they didn't want to buy from you Because they didn't want, if something went wrong, they didn't want the animosity. It's that whole family concept, right?
Yeah.
Never sell to friends and family, never buy from friends and family. And so everyone has that in their head. So when you're a relationship builder sales guy, yeah, you're good for a box of donuts when you come in for the meeting. But what are you doing? What are you bringing? Where is your value? I don't bring donuts. I rarely do lunches. And lunch is when I'm hungry and I'm like, you guys want to grab lunch, right? My thing is, I'm at the point where I've come around to the sales professional, customer centric selling approach where I focus on what their needs are. What are they truly looking for? Relate to them, connect to them, and then provide solutions. There's always a solution. We had a thing with DaVinci where, every so many 100,000 cycles, you have to switch out the molds. It's just normal. It's injection molding. And one of the molds went down. So what that means is the mold goes out for reconditioning and orders get moved back. It's just normal part of manufacturing in general. Every manufacturer goes through a machine maintenance period in which things move and get moved back. So of course the clients are like, I don't want to wait that long. The homeowners are like, this is ridiculous. Why did it get delayed? Right. So I'm getting bombarded. I'm like, okay, this happens. Everything. Your tire will go flat on a highway someday and you'll be stuck there and you'll have to call a tow truck or you'll have to switch it out. Right. All that stuff is normal everyday life. It's just with us, it was a big machine that needed to switch out, right? But not normal. Normally I would go, well, it's the way it is, right? The old days. It's the way it is. Sorry, if you want to cancel, whatnot. But in the new professional way, the way I connect and I learn what departments do what, who the people are in the department, what happens during a maintenance period, and why, and then where are things moving during that period. So I pivot. I know that this plant over here is still producing that product. Okay, then I contact the distributor. We got to cancel the PO. We got to separate it. You're going to order this from this plant. You're going to order this from this plant. They do it. Now, all of a sudden, instead of it being delayed by weeks to months, it actually moves up and their order comes a week early. And they're like, how did you do it? And it was just finding a solution. Does that work every time? No, but what are the chances of two plants having the same machine at the same time go out, right? It's just both plants make different product lines. So when you order from one plant, everything comes from one plant. It just makes sense logistically. But if something happens, a sales professional will find a solution, will emphasize with the clients. And even if it was maybe a week later, that's no big deal, right? But at least they're getting their product. I provided that value of going above and beyond. And I left the realm probably 3 years ago of being that order taker, relationship builder type sales rep. And now that I've entered the sales professional realm of things, it's opened up doors, windows. Heck, I have a retractable roof, right? And the sun is
value
shining.
providers now, right?
Yeah, the universe is providing the solutions. So when you think about like what you were saying with the soul, the body is like the finger and the soul is the body. So the soul is moving the whole thing, the finger. Our soul is like 10, 20, 30 feet outside of our bodies at all times, which is why if you do Krillian photography, you know how they show the energy field around people? They call it the aura energy field, electromagnetic energy that the body's producing. That's your soul. And when you watch videos of like a parent sitting on a floor and they had these studies, right? They have these cameras set up and you watch the little kid run over. You watch the energy flow together and mesh and you see the embrace and the colors of that embrace, the love that is shown. And it's the same thing in every interaction you do. You can either block off and shield your soul from other people and live a miserable life. Okay. I'm not going to say it's all miserable. You might like it, right? You might like being by yourself all the time. Or you can open it up a little bit, right? Let a little bit open, let a little trust out there, a little bit of love coming from the heart and connect with their energy. And then you'll feel it. You'll start to feel it. You know when you've made it through all of the muck of the world and you've made it to that point where you can connect with someone because you start to feel it. You start to get imprints, thoughts, gut, like you know what they're going through. It's kind of, and I don't want to take it down a new agey road, but you know how like psychics, they'll go, I feel this in my throat. I'm coughing, right? And then they're like, yeah, he died of throat cancer when they're talking to the other side. Same thing. You'll feel that dismay, that pain, whatever that customer's going through, you know what it is they're looking for. You know, instead of knocking that door and saying, hey, we got free roofs coming to you in the neighborhood. You know, you knock the door. Hey, everybody make it through the storm okay? You know, I noticed there's trees down your backyard.
Gotta care.
And they're like, yeah, what are you here for? We're in the neighborhood. We're just checking everything out, seeing if anyone needs help. I got a water truck in the street. You know, my truck's full of water. Come on out, grab a case for your family. And, you know, if you want, we can talk about ways that we could get you back to pre-storm condition and just leave it, right? If you connected with them or if your energy is aligned, then they'll want to talk to you more. But don't go and sell everyone. The life is not sales. You know, like you hear these famous professionals say, the best sale I ever made was my wife. Yeah. Really? Okay. So you changed yourself, you used NLP, you used different techniques of psychology to convince your wife to believe you're something more than you are. You weren't your authentic self. You sold her, right? And now you're together. But what happens when you hurt your back and you can't work out and now you got your beer gut instead of your 10-pack, right? What happens when your hair starts to fall out? And maybe you don't have a pretty head. Maybe your skull is all, you know, wrinkled up, right? What substance did that relationship build on if the only thing you were doing was selling her on a date with you and then selling her on an engagement, selling her on marrying you, selling her on kids? But did you open up? Did you show love? Did you connect as a twin flame soulmate approach? Or did you connect on that superficial, you know, I guess you could call it lustful beginning approach, right? And I'll tie it back to roofing. It's like Da Vinci. We're a super expensive product. We are like Ferrari. You know, you go into a Ferrari dealership, you place your order. You don't get it right now. You wait a year or more, whatever the production date is. You watch as it goes through. Same here. You're buying, our roofs are about the same price depending on the size of your house, right? And when you order it, you're curating the colors, you're picking out the line, you're picking out the look, the type of coursing you want, the type of offsets you want, and you're working with color sensations people, and you're making it more of a experience rather than a sale. And the people that are buying it already know it's expensive. They already know what they want. They don't need to be sold. They need you to be with them, connect with them, and make the experience a positive one. Everything is about customer experience these days, and showing them that it's not just another notch in your belt. You know, taking the care to be on that job, even if you don't go on a roof, climb the ladder, right? Talk to your crew. Look at different things. How's this coming together? How's that coming together? Come on down, point things out with the homeowner. Let them watch. So many people are like, oh man, this dude's sitting in his lawn chair watching us roof. I wonder what he's going to be an engineer about. He's not being an engineer. He wants to sit there and he wants to be a part of the experience of getting this. He spent, even in the shingle world, you're spending $20,000+. Yeah. You know, there's only a couple things in life that cost that much: a wedding, a divorce, and a roof, you know? So he's going to sit in his lawn chair, but you need to make that experience of sitting in the lawn chair good. Before they say, hey, why is that wood showing? Get ahead of it. As you can see, what they're doing now is they're laying their felt. They're overlapping it 4 to 6 inches. They're doing their end laps. They're working their way up the roof. That exposed wood there, you can see we've inspected it. It looks great. That'll soon be covered with this underlayment. And then grab a piece of the underlayment. Here, feel this. Try to tear it. You can't tear it. Feels good, right? Yeah, I like that. Any other questions on what they're doing? You know, sit with them and just go through the project. And then at the end, they feel great. Here's your check. You know, and they refer you. And maybe you'll go in and, you know, have a meal with them. I've had meals with so many customers. It's not even funny. And I love it because we don't talk about the sale. We just talk about them. And you don't know where anyone's going or where they're going to be in life. There's a lot of people that I've seen that were where I was, sweeping floors, right? Washing cars, detailing, and now they're CEOs of their own companies. Now they're driving the jacked up trucks. They're taking their families on these exotic vacations. Nobody is beneath you, nobody's above you. We're all part of the same energy source. Yes, DNA and the way this form, this vehicle was created, is different, right? It's all based on where it was handed down to, where it came from the very beginning. But the energy that's driving this is all from the same source. You could have 1,000 different gods, right? But they're all I don't want to say clone, I want to say personality trait or let's go with personality trait of the source. The source is basically replicating itself to experience different parts of itself. Does that make sense? So when you had these other gods that religions have, right? That more than likely was a messenger, a energy being that dropped to the solid state level, came and assisted the community, the person, or whoever it was at the time, and then left. Sadly, our brains are too small to realize the greater concept of the universe. So instantly that helper being became their god, right? And it was the god of fertility, the god of, sand, water, whatever it was that came at the time that it came. But it's all still part of the same source and that energy that replicated for that assistance. So I view everybody as we're all a part of that source, and we got to work together because everyone says the meaning of life is unconditional love.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Everybody can find that unconditional love, which is in this state of form is nearly impossible. You have to reach that perfect nirvana and strip everything out of your mind about everybody and not even get annoyed if they chew with their mouth open. Right? Unconditional love is like the cream of the high realm ascended master.
It's the highest
stuff.
level of acceptance, you can say.
Yeah. But if you want to achieve unconditional love, but when you realize that, think of it like when you cut yourself, right? And those cells come together and everything heals. We're kind of doing that. We're trying to take the lessons and then return everything to source. So by connecting with everybody, learning everybody's culture, learning everybody's upbringing, learning everybody's pains, traumas, and working together as a community to truly heal, then we can open up our hearts to unconditional love. You'll notice that there were civilizations that were super advanced, in South America, for example, right? And then they vanish without a trace. My theory on that is that community realized the truth, that they aren't different. They're all part of the same source. They work together to assist each other, create technologies, help each other overcome all of that negative trauma, all the things that were plaguing them, that were preventing them from being the best version of themselves. And once they reached that epoch of existence, they probably just moved out. Not even
part of the source.
Passing away, but literally just vibrating out of the space. That matter is always moving. Matter is always vibrating, right? Nothing is solid. It's just lower density, slower vibration, higher vibration. Same with the body. So my assumption is once you reach that higher place, you just ascend out and you go back to source, and then you work with source to become one of those messengers and help the next generation until this level of existence figures out that, okay, it's time to move up. It's time to move on. We're here for a blip. We're here for such a short period of time out of an eternity, right? I just think about when this vessel's gone, it's going to be an eternity somewhere, and you're going to do something. You're not going to be floating around doing nothing. You're going to have a purpose, your higher purpose of what you're going to take, what you learned here with you to help other people. You might be a guide. You might be converted to an angel. You might just go back to source, and maybe you're just done. There's so many different factors that play in the other side. I don't even want to speculate on that because I have no idea. But as long as you're the best version of yourself and you're trying others to become the best version of themselves, and you're bringing solutions and not problems, you'll eventually make a change around you. It's like that moldy strawberry that's placed next to a fresh one that's placed next to a fresh one. They all mold within a week. But if you remove your moldiness and you become that fresh strawberry, you'll eventually take the mold away from everybody else and everyone's fresh strawberries. What a horrible example, but you know what I mean.
Okay, I didn't get it actually, but I do understand all of this somehow. Like, I don't know 100% of it, but I do feel that we are all part of a greater power or a greater source. And once we get into all of this, things just start streamlining for us, and the life just goes on, and we start to live life, and it does not pass. It just makes us like live, or makes us experience so many great things. And I loved the thing that you said, that so many times when a storm hits, like if we talk about roofing, many times a homeowner gives a ring to the roofer in case of a storm, and they have these dollar signs in their eyes. They are thinking money, money, money. Yeah, we got it.
Right.
But only 1% of the roofers ask them, are you okay? How's your family? How are your kids? And they are the value providers. They are the ones that you are talking about. Like, they actually care about the home owners, and this is the kind of community we have to make. And you have shared so many
Yes.
great things about sales in a short span that you have talked. I want to ask you, what are the things that you see roofers doing wrong in terms of sales? And then I have a question about warranties and the shingle warranties and slate warranties as well, but we're going to come back to that later on, as we have a short time now. What are the things that you feel roofers are doing wrong in sales nowadays, particularly as a material supplier, because you see them as well?
Just listening all the way around to the homeowners and what their true concerns and needs are. Listening to the manufacturer on how to properly do something. Just because you've done something the same way for 20 years doesn't mean you ever did it right. You learned it wrong. You're doing it wrong. This isn't the right way. Here's the right way. Let us show you. Let us teach you. Going through the classes, like becoming knowledgeable. I've done it all from rainbow vacuum sales through Amway, right? I've been multi-level marketed to death. I've been to all of them. And every step of the way, it was never listening. It was just get rich quick, get rich quick, get rich quick. That's what everyone is in their head is, if I just do that, I'll make a ton of money and I'll get rich and I can then go spend my day at the lake. But I learned it. I went and I wanted to be in that warehouse. I wanted to see how things were stored. I wanted to see how they wrapped a pallet. I wanted to see how they loaded a roof. I wanted to see what the front counter experienced. And then I went on the other side and I met with crews and learned how crews work, how they get paid, where they go, what areas, that there's A crews down to D crews, that there's good crew chiefs, bad crew chiefs. There's all kinds of different things to learn just on crews, and then learn the in-home sales. So I did that, a lot of in-home sales, went on a lot of ride-alongs. You need to know everything to be the expert. I could easily say I'm a Six Sigma black belt and just advertise it, right? And I'm using that as an example because that's what a roofer is, right? I'm a roofer. I could be a roofer today. I'm a roofer. And if I were to tell people I'm a Six Sigma black belt and somebody picked me up off of LinkedIn and put me in a factory, well, I'm supposed to know processes, brainstorming, lines, and how all that works. Eventually, I'll be found out. I can limp my way through it with AI. Hey, this machine broke. Tell me how to fix it, and it'll do that. But eventually, I'll get caught, and I won't, and I'll be investigated and found to not have ever had that certification. And now all of a sudden, I'm deemed what I am. But it's the same thing with roofing, right? I could knock a door. I could tell you, you got storm damage or your roof looks aged. Here's a contract. Here's payments. I can sell on it. But as a roofing salesman today, if somebody points and said, hey, I have a little leak in the ceiling, or I have a nail pop over here, Do you know what causes that? Most people just BS their way through it. Oh, yeah, that's just expansion, contraction of the joint, and it caused this to that, whatever they want to say. But if you actually learn your trade and you focus on knowing all the angles from the operation side to the install side, then you come in as that expert, that trusted advisor that people will call and say, hey, I'm experiencing this. What do you think it is? Oh, it sounds like condensation from your nail heads. We have had, negative 10-degree days going on here. What's your heat set at? Do you have your humidifier on? Let me go up in the attic, take a look at how much insulation's in there. Let's check your soffit, see if it's actually breathing and removing the moisture, from your fireplace to your cooking to your showers, and you're the expert. A lot of people wouldn't be able to troubleshoot that. So the best advice I could give a sales rep is dig in, dig your heels in and learn it. You wouldn't want a doctor to go through an accelerated 3-to-1 program on some school in some state that doesn't require accreditation to perform heart surgery on you. And I know that's extreme, right? Roofing isn't heart surgery, but the roof is kind of the heart of the home. It is what protects everything under it. Your roof leaks, you could damage electrical, damage plumbing, damage insulation, grow black mold, damage the humans that live inside. All those different things start at the roof and then trickle down the house. And by being that expert and by understanding that what you're seeing is right or wrong is a way to elevate the industry in general. There's so many times where I'll go on a roof and I'll be like, this flashing, who did this? Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? Well, no, it's completely wrong. It's the wrong size. You didn't counter flash. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Right. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that. The crew did that. Well, okay. Who, did you have a project manager on this? Yeah, it was me. Did you get out of your truck? Did you get on the roof? Did you spend time on the job? Well, I was here. I answered any questions they had, like where stuff was at. I went and got that ridge vent for them, and I'm not trying, and I don't want this to seem like I'm poking because I used to be that sales rep, right? I would sell you a Corvette and not even know what a LT engine was. And I still don't know, right? I probably even called it the wrong engine, but there's people out there that are like, no, wrong engine. That's this engine, or this is a Z06. Because they're passionate about it. Yeah. But I would go and be like, yeah, what do you think? This car is hot, right? Could you picture yourself driving down Main Street? You got this thing freshly washed, windows rolled down, you got Metallica blasting out the back windows, your subs are going, whatever it is. And just imagine all the looks you're getting as you're driving by, right? And that person might have come in because they need a minivan, but I sold them the Corvette. And then the wife comes in and starts screaming at me. Same thing with roofing. So you could switch that all over to roofing. They came in because they wanted the roof that fit their house, but because you didn't educate yourself and become the expert, or at least find the people you could call and say, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. I'm new. I do know a person who does. Let me give them a call. Give them a call. Call your experts. Call your connections. They're more than happy to help you. Don't annoy them. You need to learn it. You can't call them 3 times and say, hey, you remember when I called you on that skylight thing? Can you tell me what that was again? No, you need to imprint it in your head and learn it and take that knowledge with you. Like I watch salespeople go through these sales trainings. There's great sales trainings out there, but they don't actually use it. Like right here on my desk, I got a book. You can't see it.
Yeah.
I got a giant fat book of systems and processes that I put together based on scenarios I'm in that I can reference. I might forget what type of drip edge is supposed to be used at some point, but at least I can open the book up, go to that, and remember what it is. Now, I don't forget what drip edge is, but that was an example of that. You're always going to come across things. And if somebody provides you with their time, their energy, their kindness to provide you with an answer to a question, write it down and learn it so that when it comes up again, you can confidently give that answer and elevate yourself. Everybody's on a path, a destiny, right? It might be not the roofing path. You might be watching this podcast and think, I've been feeling down lately. I need to look at the spiritual stuff, right? And they go out and buy a book like Clearing Negative Thoughts. And they start putting these things in practice. As soon as your level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? As soon as your level of need takes a step back, which goes with your ego, right? All this stuff, we don't need any of it. We could literally live in a tent, have a little yard, and grow whatever's in season at the time, and that's all we eat. And then your body gets to the point where you really don't need to eat too much because you're a lean, mean running machine. But our egos or our initial thing is to be successful, have luxury items, and appear as something great. We always want that appearance. But once that strips away, you might be like, I really like going to the chiropractor. And I really enjoy talking to him about what he's doing with my spine and my alignments and stuff. And yeah, roofing makes a ton of money, but that's not my passion. And you will eventually be directed onto the right path. I never thought that roofing was going to be my path, right? I grew up in the car world. My dream, everything that I knew was going to be a car business. And that dream fell apart. And I could have easily, I had people come up and offer investing and say, let's open it up again. You run it, this time it'll be better. We're out of the recession. This is over. It just wasn't me anymore. It wasn't me. I had the opportunity to do it. But now that I've entered this field, I guess I see a lot of people that were like me, that were broken at some point, that might still be broken. And now I use this as a media to not only help them make a lot more money, because when you sell Da Vinci, that's a high dollar sale. And if you know anything about business, it's all based on margin percentages, right? So as a high dollar sale, as a salesman, you're making some good commission on Da Vinci. So that's cool. I get to bring you that value, right? You're going to make some good money. But as we're going through this, I'm teaching, I'm training, I'm helping, I'm bringing that value, beyond. Most of the days, I feel like I should have got a psychology degree, because our conversations start out as roofing and it goes well beyond whatever they're going through. And we work through it. If I have a solution for it, I provide it. I mean, I've got all the medical medium books. I've got all the ancient medicine books. I've got all the clearing, emotional clearing energy books. I've got everything that has to do with every part of every system of the body, from, your toes on up to your brain to the outside. And so I can provide guidance when it comes up. And so I realized that I'm where I'm at because the universe has a lot of people that I interact with that want to grow themselves. And it's been an incredible journey. I've watched customers quit alcohol, quit drugs, eat healthy. They'll send me a text, I lost 20 pounds. Or they'll start making posts, put down the pills, pick up the weights, right? All kinds of different things. They're starting to encourage each other. And all it took was just somebody to just shine a little bit of light. And it spreads fast. The fastest thing to move darkness is turning on a light. It's pitch black. You turn the light on, speed of light, boom, darkness is gone. Yeah. So you just got to go out there and just be that light, help them grow in the industry. If the industry's not for them, they'll figure it out. They'll move on, but at least there's options to it for them. I've got a lot of people that were sales reps that are now project managers. They absolutely love it. They get to spend time with the homeowner on a personal level, and they learned everything about installation. And now they're doing material orders, spending time on the roof with the crew all day in the sun, right? They're loving life, helping people still. I've got people that were project managers or delivery or this that are now in sales doing what they love. I've watched. The industry is cool because the people that are on this path and it is their destiny, you'll see those same people for over a dozen years now. I still run into the same people. It's as if we grew up together and we're running into each other. Like we just had dinner last night and it's the next day, but it could be a year since we've seen each other. And you just pick up right where it left off because of the value you bring each other. Every Wednesday, I do a contractor fellowship group. It's contractors from all over the nation. Jim Johnson's the one that heads it up. He's got Nathan Tabito as his co-host. And we do a Google Meet login. And we're all there. Everybody's a competitor in some way, shape, or form. Everybody's from different parts of the industry, but they're all coming together to do a fellowship study. And it's always studying either like a book in Proverbs, one of the verses, right? And then just taking and opening up. It's like one of those share circles where everybody's going to keep it private, and we're all working together to elevate ourselves. And I've seen some miraculous transformations, including in myself. I thought I had it all together until last week when we got to the next one and somebody made a comment, and then I realized myself that I needed to make another shift, another change in me.
What I
Yeah.
have summarized from you, Thomas, is that you are saying that we need to tell people that I don't know. And this is what my sales guru or my coach or my mentor told me as well, that people don't want you to be perfect. People want to see that you are like them and you make mistakes too. And once that happens and you tell them, I fucked up here, basically, but I'm going to fix that for you and let's just do it together. That's the time they're going to relate with you because they know that you are like them. And that's what I have summarized from your conversation. And the second point is that you have to constantly improve and you have to get rid of your ego, basically, and you have to be coachable. So that's what I have learned from
You have
what
to
you have
have
said.
humility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Humble yourself, have that humility, strip the ego, open the heart, and shine. That's basically it. And you're right. Like with that, I messed up here, right? You do it on the same level. This is a sales technique, but it's a good technique. And it's one that we use all the time when I was in the car business. So when you have someone looking at a car, bad car salesman will come up and be like, "Hey, you want to take it for a test drive?"
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Well, here, I'll put this plate on. Just give me your license and we'll go scan it. Let's go out for a ride, right? It's right off the bat. They're trying to order take. A good salesman, I would go out and I'd stand next to him. I'd be like, "You see that scratch right there?" "Yeah, I was noticing it. Think that'll buff out. The car's a couple years old, not in a spot you really see that much, just like the scuffs on the rims. How many people hit the curb every time they try to parallel park?" "Yeah, I'll probably damage it myself someday."
Okay.
"Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm Tom, the sales rep here. You want me to take you around the rest of the car, show you what's good and what's not good about it?" "Yeah, let's look at it." And then we would move forward with the actual sale because I entered on their side as though I was the buyer as well.
And actually, I'm going to cut this part down, what I'm going to speak now. You're right that the dark powers don't want us to connect. And maybe we can have another episode or a part two of this conversation dedicated to spirituality and everything. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
that would be fun because I could go through my techniques that I
Mhm.
use to tie it all together. I talked about that Lean Six Sigma before, and yeah, I did take the white belt course and I'm moving my way through those courses. I did that mainly because when you're in a forum and they ask questions about things, I have questions and answers, but I didn't carry the designation, right? It was just all knowledge that I picked up over the years. So nobody took me seriously. So then I'm like, okay. So I signed up, paid for a Lean Six Sigma course, got my white belt, and then said, okay, I got through the first belt. I'm moving on. Now can I ask my questions, right? Just to show that I took the time to learn what they knew so that my questions were pertinent to the conversation. And it's
That
the
makes
same
you
thing with
credible.
spirituality and sales. You have to work through what your issues are. There's platforms out there that will record your conversations in the home, that will analyze it with AI, and you could go back and review them, right? And it's kind of like a review of life when you take a Six Sigma approach. You take sales, like customer centric selling system, for example, and then you take your spirituality. So you've got your trine, you're bringing it together, and then you're working through those techniques and making sure that you're staying real to yourself while also moving through the sales process. Just like our conversation, like went in one direction for a long time. And that's due to passion, really. Your conversations in sales do that. They go in a direction that they shouldn't. And you have to take that and change the direction. You got to steer that ship and keep you on that path, at least from the sales part, while you're still connecting and relating. So I don't know when we cut off before, but what I was talking about with the car dealer, I would come out and I'd stand next to you and I'd point out that scratch and say, that might buff out, but it's low enough to where it doesn't make a difference. The car's a few years old. You're going to have road rash on your cars. I'm Tom. I'm a sales rep here. Can I take you around the car and show you other flaws in its visual aesthetics, but also show you some of the cool features it has and ways it might fit what you're looking for? And then I go into the conversation. So are you buying a vehicle for yourself for personal use? Is this recreational? Your secondary vehicle? Is this for another family member? Tell me why you want to purchase this vehicle. And then they'll go into detail, but you've taken yourself to their level as though you're their friend. You're both looking at the car together. You're pointing out a flaw right off the bat that they're noticing because you're watching their head movements, what they're touching, what they're moving at, so that you can then connect at that level and then continue down the path. So I could definitely go into different techniques and ways that I prepare myself for meetings. There's meetings like with our meeting, for example, prior to us doing this communication, I went and I meditated. I sat down, grounded myself in nature and said, okay, I want the universe to use me as their conduit, send it through me, and whatever is needed to be said is to be said. When I need to listen, tell me to not inner monologue myself to death. Actually listen to what you ask, what you're saying, and move through it. And that's the same thing I do whenever I'm doing a sales call or a training. Nothing ever goes in the way in which I wrote it out. And I've got like an OCD perfectionism, about myself, where everything has to be in order, everything has to be scheduled, everything has to be perfect, right? And I had to break that and realize that life doesn't move in the direction that you plan it to, that life is a giant adventure and that you have to take everything as a lesson, good or bad. If you're on the freeway and your exit's over here and the lanes are full, the first time you'll shoot across and you might make your exit, cause a bunch of people hit the brakes, traffic backs up. Second time, you might get pitted into the wall because you didn't time it right and somebody scooted up on you and pushed you. Those are both lessons. The first lesson is an ego lesson. I'm not missing my exit. I'm taking it. I don't care about these people. The second lesson is the stripping of your ego. I was pushed into the wall for my decision. Now, the third time, if your exit's coming up and you can't get over, you're driving to the next exit. You're exiting safely, and then you're going back and then going to your destination. You learn from these life's lessons to not make those mistakes again, but you appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to exit the freeway safely the first time. Thank you for allowing me to walk away from being pushed into the wall. And thank you for changing my mindset and allowing me to now not let it get me all stressed out. I'll just hit the next exit. Some exits might be 20 miles down the road because you're in the country. But you know what? That 20-mile ride could be a reflection. You could get a phone call of somebody that needed your help. And because you're delayed 20 minutes, you're able to help them. There's so many different things that come from life that you don't realize. You see it as a detriment. You see it as something good's happening. Oh, they always come in, always comes in threes when it's bad. Ooh, lucky number 7, right? You're taking all these signs, but you're twisting them. You're taking them from an egocentric position and not from a position of humility. And what am I going to learn from this? What does that number 7 mean? It doesn't mean I'm going to go out buy a lottery ticket or go to the casino and put all my money in a machine because I see lucky number 7. 7 has different connections spiritually based on the position or the timing of the message that came. You might have just gotten in an argument with your kid over something, got a little bit heated, said some things you didn't mean to say, and then that number 7 pops up to make you reflect on those words you used, to be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said what I said. I need to take a step back, apologize, be forgiven, because your apologies just can't be, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for saying this to you. This was not what I should have said. I know it hurt you. Do you forgive me? Oh yeah, I forgive you. I love you. Well, can we sit down and talk and see how we can approach what happened in a better manner, right? And it's as you go through life and you learn those lessons, do you then open up to what the universe is trying to tell you? And once you're on your path and it's flowing, you don't care about money. You don't care about personal items, but it keeps flowing in. That author, I don't remember his name, but he wrote that Purpose Driven Life book, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. He lives on 10% of his income and he gives away 90%. 10% gives him a beautiful house. It gives him everything. He has what he needs. The rest he gives to charity, to things that he does for the community, to whatever his heart's led to give to, right? But he knows that he doesn't need that 90%. He only needs that 10%. And it's always provided because he's on his purpose-driven path, right? When these sales guys go out there, first learn everything about your business, become that expert, become the doctor in the field. You're not going to learn it in 30 days. You're not going to learn it in a quarter. You're not going to learn it in a year. Heck, I've been in this for a dozen years and I still don't know everything. I'm not even close to knowing everything. There's details in a roof system where two planes will meet and it'll have an overhang and then cut in. And it was built up, it was built up on slats and you had to take the slats off, redeck. You've just dropped everything down by 2-3 inches. Now everything's off. I couldn't tell you how to put everything back together, but somebody who's 10 years ahead of me could. And that's the person I go to. And we have a technical installation specialist that I call, FaceTime, show him the video of what I'm looking at, and then he'll go through it. And if he can't explain it on the phone, he'll record a video of him doing it and send it to me to show the contractor how to do it. And it's those type of things that you build and you save that is your knowledge base. That's your foundation, is the knowledge of the career path you're choosing. The rest of it is your journey, how you're going to take that knowledge and take it into the market, take it into your customer base, to new people, deliver it profoundly so that they pay attention and learn, but they retain it and they then go out. It's like what is that saying? The student has now become the master, right?
Yes.
You want everybody to be smarter than you because that means you brought that value. When they become smarter than you, you're not their teacher anymore. They're not going to kick you to the curb. They're going to elevate you yourself. Okay, I've taught them everything I know. Now what can I learn that I can show them that they don't know? And what are they going to go learn that they can show me that I don't know? Now you're a true partnership as salesman client. And you're out there bringing each other up, growing each other. There are some homeowners that I still talk to that were sold over a year ago that'll reach out with a happy holidays, or how's it going? Or still love the roof. Hey, if you're in the area, swing by. I made some fresh pie, right? And I make it a point to respond, swing by and have a piece of pie. Because this isn't a one time, my roof's going to be 50 plus years before it starts to break down. And I'm not selling you another roof, but you might send me your friends and your family, which that homeowner has. They've sent me 3 different referrals. And I'm your trusted advisor. You're the one that you're still reaching out to. A year later, you're going to call me and say, hey, I have a siding job. I need my windows replaced. Who do you recommend? And then that's where I would say, hey, call so-and-so. I've seen their work, but don't ever make a referral unless you know the people and you've seen their work, because a bad referral will make your name a mud, right? The oldest saying that a mentor told me is, if your word is no good, you're no good. That's all he would say. And then another thing I heard was, worry is a dividend paid by disaster, right? Those are the 2 big things. So keep your word and quit worrying, because if you worry, you're going to get a dividend paid by disaster. And if you don't keep your word, no one will ever trust you. And that's one of the things I pride myself in, is keeping my word, doing what I say. My schedule's tight. I'm overwhelmed. I can't get to it right now, but I will get to it. And when I get to it, I get to it. And I've taken it to a point where I used to be very reactive and just whatever they want, I do it right now. Instant gratification. Well, we've created a society of instant gratification and it's destroyed us. We've created a society of complainers. If people would just step back and say, okay, I see what you're saying. Let me think on that. Give me 24 hours. I'm going to look at my schedule. I'll see when I can get this done and I'll let you know. You're setting the expectations up front. You're not making any promises you can't keep. You're giving them a timeline in which you'll get them an answer. You think about it. You provide them the answer. And if you can't do it because you're too busy, you just tell them, no, I'm sorry, I don't have the time in my schedule to do that, but you can call this person and they can assist you. Or if you give me a week, I can definitely get that done for you. And then it'll be up to them. You know what? I can wait a week. It's not really that urgent, because lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. That's always been a great thing. When I was in the car business, that was their giant sign that hung up in the title bureau. And you know, title and license bureaus, right? You go in there, you think you've got everything ready on your paperwork, but you're missing your second piece of mailing that says you live at that address. You've waited in line 2 hours. You go up to the counter. Yeah, I'm just here to renew my license. All right, I need 2 forms of address. Well, I have just one, my credit card statement. Isn't that good enough? No, it's 2 forms. And then as soon as you start to get heated, right, you'll get angry. I waited 2 hours. I didn't know I needed this. You can't just push it through. How do I skip ahead of the line, right? They would just point at that sign. Lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on our part. Sir, come on back when you have both forms of mailing. And you leave. And I always love that saying because it's true. That person, me, I need to plan. I need to sit down, think of all the different angles, research everything that I'm going to go do and say. Anything change? Do I need any more information? I'm going to gather it. And I'm going to have a purpose when I come into the meeting. I'm going to sit down. We're going to do the agenda. We're going to go through anything extra. Of course, I'll throw in there. You can pivot the meeting all you want, but I've prepared for it. I forget who said this, but somebody said, if you prepare for an hour, you'll talk for days. If you prepare for days, you'll talk for an hour. And that's because you prepared what you want to convey and get across to the audience that you're speaking to. So preparation is a huge part of sales. We could go into so many different things. I've been through every
That's
program
amazing.
that's possible.
You have shared so many things about sales, and I really thank you for that, because
You're
these are
welcome.
the things that I have never heard. And I remember a story that's just a short story I want to share. When you mentioned that you have to create people who are more talented than you, and you have to have them in your team. There is a spiritual story that I heard 2 years back. It's like a leader or a spiritual master, you can say, has a pupil, and there was a grandmaster who watched both of them walking. And when he was seeing the spiritual master and his pupil walking down the road, he said that, I'm seeing a sea walking behind a river. Now that's so deep. I am seeing a sea walking behind a river, and that pupil made Rumi. If you have heard about him, Jalaluddin Rumi, he's a Turkish poet. He's considered a spiritual master, and that was the pupil. Like a grandmaster talked about him. I'm seeing a sea walking behind a river. That is such a deep statement, and that's what I feel business owners need to do as well. Like, if you find a sea and you know you are a river, then you just have to let the sea flow, and he or she will find his or her own path. So yeah, you're right about that. I had a question that's tickling me, since you talked
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
Da
Yeah.
Vinci, and you are the Ferrari of the roofing materials. Most of, like, you have worked with GAF as well, you have worked with asphalt shingles, you have worked with slate roofs. I want to ask you, like, most of these guys, they claim that we have 50 years warranty on our materials, and compared to that, I don't know, you can correct me, that slate roofs have no particular material warranty. So how do homeowners, like, still choose slate roofs over these asphalt shingles? That's the number one thing. And the second thing I want to ask you, why do these asphalt shingle manufacturers claim 50 years warranty when there's no way that roof's going to last that long?
Yeah, you have to look at, it's a delicate question because, there's warranties on everything from your television set to your couch to your car, right? Everything is a limited warranty based on a specified time period, things that are covered under the warranty
Mhm.
and the basis of a warranty. So warranties is something that you can dissect for hours. And I loved comparing and reading every warranty. So the slate products that I offer is synthetic, which is a composite material made from a virgin polymer. And these polymer bonds makes a liquid that is forced into a 1200 mold, and then it drops out a tile, right? That is an exact duplicate of the natural material. So the natural material, like slate, is rock straight out of the ground, right? Everybody knows what rock is, and rock's been around forever. So in your mind, rock's going to last forever. Composite is, for the better word of it, it's a polyethylene, but people just refer to it as plastic. It's not plastic because there's all different levels of plastic. There's your recycled plastic water bottle that crackles every time you grasp it because it's lower grade plastic. And then you've got your polyethylene plastic barrels that hold on to nuclear waste that are buried in the ground for hundreds of years because that polyethylene is a stronger plastic. So we're made out of the strong plastic, the stuff that's made to last. And then everything is chemically created and made to have periods of use, breakdown, which is natural occurrence, and then environmental conditions based on where you live in the country. So you'll notice some products will have, everybody throws lifetime on their products, but I never look at lifetime. I always look at, all right, what's the commercial warranty, right? How long are they covering it commercially? How long is your non-prorated period? How long are they taking it out for? What's the proration entail? How far does it drop down? What percentage are you going to get by the end of the warranty? All those different factors. Most of them are 1/600 rule, right? And then you look at the materials that you're putting on the roof. So real slate, being that it's, natural rock, that thing has a warranty, but it's not like the other warranties. So that warranty specifically would be you need to inspect it at least twice a year because you have freeze-thaw cycles in certain parts of the country. It is a porous material, so when it freezes and thaws, it expands and contracts, and it can crack or break or slip. So you need to do proper maintenance, which is part of the warranty. Proper maintenance is something that's required on every warranty out there, right? Even your television set that hangs on the wall. If you didn't clear the dust off of it and it burned up a capacitor, guess what? Negligence. You didn't clean your TV. If you don't have your roof inspected once a year, you don't fix nail pops, bad caulking, metal that moved away, negligence. You didn't maintain your roof. Does that affect the warranty fully? No, only if that issue was caused based on that particular negligence. But does it open the door to allow for the warranty to be denied? Well, of course, because you neglected to maintain your roof. Just like you can't replace an engine in your car if you didn't put an oil change in it before the warranty's up. There's people out there that'll drive their cars and they'll drive them hard that last 10,000 miles in hopes of blowing the engine up so they get a new engine. Well, when they go in and they remove the drain plug and they see that the sludge coming out and that you didn't maintain that engine, they're going to deny the warranty claim on the engine. So we go back to roofing. So on slate will oxidize, which means the materials that are in the rock itself, like the ores, will start to, as they're exposed to the environment, will start to change color. So you've seen like black slate turn light brown or dark brown, and that's natural oxidation of slate. It's natural aging process, so that's not covered. Let's say 50 years from now, because most slate warranties are 50 to 75 years, so I'll preface it with that. You go up there, but the rock's really soft and it's delaminating and falling apart. That is one of the items, at least in the warranty I read, that's covered, the delamination or the softening of the rock, because it shouldn't get soft, which means that that particular piece of slate had too much of something else in it that softened. So they would replace that. But then it's how would they replace it? Depending on how far you are, depends on if you're going to have any form of installation labor, any form of transportation costs, removal costs, right? And then most warranties cover the product you installed, not all the products you installed, the one that the warranty's under. You put any brand name manufacturer, you put just their roof on, but everything under it is all generic. You can't expect that warranty of what's on top to pay for everything underneath if it's not part of the warranty system. Just like your backup camera goes bad on your truck, they're not replacing your truck because the backup camera went bad. They're going to replace the backup camera. Something else that's warranty goes bad, of course they'll replace that if it's within the warranty. And then there's times where you're outside the warranty, but there's a recall. And some recalls, you get it fully taken care of for free, but you have to do this, and this to do it, right? And the same thing with the warranty. Some warranties will cover things like labor and such. Other warranties will not. Some warranties will non-prorate farther. Other warranties will be shorter. Some warranties will go longer, some will go shorter. And then it all depends on everything. In regards to what you're saying with a shingle roof, shingles are asphalt and rock, right? That's all it is. It's asphalt and rock. It's got some sealant on it, but you're selling asphalt and rock that's in a strip that you're nailing to somebody's roof. That asphalt and rock in this environment could last 40, 50 plus years because it's just a neutral environment that doesn't get affected by things. Where over here, you've gone through, in Ohio, for example, we have 4 seasons in a day. So that roof could see a freeze-thaw cycle. It could see rain and hail all in the same day. That's not going to last 40, 50 years. That's going to last 20 years, because it's being bombarded by that environment. Now, on the warranty side of things, if the shingle or the product has premature failure due to something in a manufacturing process, it's covered. That has, premature failure. Weathering in a storm could be a named storm event, right? If you get hit with hail and the roof is now shedding its granules at an accelerated rate because the hail didn't impact or dent the roof, it just loosened the granule surface, and the granules are shedding quickly, and you send back a piece to the manufacturer for a warranty, and the manufacturer performs their testing and shows, okay, the polymer bonds held up, the asphalt held up, the rocks were at the right point, they were pressed in it correctly, the colors are right, the sealant activated correctly. Okay, manufacturing wise, we don't see anything here. Then they'll start to test other ways to see what they can find. And then they'll put the address in. Oh, they had 3 hailstorms in the past 2 years. And then they might construct something that says, this is not a manufacturing defect. This is weather related. These granules are coming off because something impacted the surface that caused it to loosen and shed faster than what they're supposed to based on warranty. But then I've seen warranty claims that are paid out perfectly, right? If there's truly a manufacturing defect, it pays it out. These manufacturers do put money back. These manufacturers do bank stuff. They do have a fund for legitimate warranty claims, just like an insurance carrier. And I hate to go to insurance, but they have funds for claims, right? Not every claim is a true claim. Not every warranty is a true warranty. With our product, knock on wood, I haven't had any. And what's nice is our product just doesn't break down, right? The way it's made, the materials it's comprised of, the chemical composition, everything that we do from beginning to end, from our constant quality control to the type of presses we use, to the virgin materials, to all the processes, we know when it's coming out of the machine, exactly how it's going to come out of the machine. It's all a scientific approach, right? Which is a little bit different than like other products in the category where it might be this supplier had a better barrel than this supplier. So this run might have more oil in it, which is the stains that you see on the roofs. Those will wash out. They'll weather out. They don't wash. They technically burn off, but those will weather out. But to a homeowner, why is my roof look patchy? Unless you explained up front, hey, this is asphalt. Asphalt sits in storage. Asphalt compresses on itself because bundles are laying on a pallet. The compression of it could squeeze the oil out of the asphalt, which leaves a sheen on the granules that could make it appear different. If you see that, just know that's the natural process of asphalt oils for that particular barrel, right, that they got. Some barrels will have 0 oils come up on the roof. Others will show on every single one and then burn off. So those are the things that you set up front with those homeowners so that when that happens, you're not tearing that off again and putting it back on. Because a manufacturer will come out and they'll say, okay, here's a letter. If it doesn't burn off or weather out, this shows that it'll be replaced. But again, a homeowner might say, well, fine, we'll hold your check for 60 days, right? Till it weathers out. But if you set that up front, they'll still pay you. They got a letter. They know that it could weather out. So it's like, I might go into too much detail in sales because I go into everything. I don't want them to have misled expectations of what is and is not covered. When I talk to in my part of the business, homeowner starts with us and then trickles down to the contractor. It's just the nature of what they're buying. They're buying a Ferrari of roofs, right? or let's call it luxury sports car of roofs. I don't want to
Mm,
use any brand names out there that I can't use. So it's
mm,
the luxury sports car of the roofs. So they start with us because in their realm of buying, in that high dollar luxury item type purchase market, which you see it with Rolex, you see it with other brands, they're coming in for the experience. They're sitting down and they're consulting with the top person. And then that person is then referring them to somebody who is then performing the work. So it's the same type of thing. Like in mine, they go to an architect, they go to a consultant, a specifier, a designer. They pull me in. I explain everything on the process, the material, the warranty, how things work, installation, all those things. And then they ask for contractor referral, or they call their contractor because I train contractors on how to install, and they go through it, right? So you've got that. And then on the architect side, I do AIA courses. I provide them with a credit hour unit, through the AIA. And I also belong to the IIBEC as one of their trainers. And
cool.
with them, it's more
Tom,
technical.
yeah, you mentioned that there are things related to the materials that slate roofing has, and it is based on rocks. So people naturally have that concept that rocks do last. As far as the asphalt shingles are concerned, they're definitely not going to last that long. But it comes down to the inspection part as well. So how would you sum that up?
So when I'm talking to a homeowner, I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
product is produced with quality control. It's produced
Mm,
with virgin materials. I'll
mm,
just speak from my product, and
mm,
it comes out made to order. You're getting items that are fresh out of a machine that is inspected at least 10 different times as it goes down the different lines for packaging.
mm,
And when our product comes, you're going to receive what you're paying for, a very solid product to put on your roof. The next thing you got to worry about is installation. Within the first 2 years, any
mm,
installation error will make itself
mm,
apparent. Anything that they mess up, and that's why a lot of manufacturers, even in a workmanship warranty, will say the
mm,
first 2 years is on you, then we'll cover your workmanship. Why? Because all problems appear within those first 2 years that have to do with that crew that installed it. So I explain to the homeowner, nobody's perfect. You can install a
mm,
door perfectly square, leave, you open and slam that door 6 times, you knock a shim out, your door's not square anymore. Is that warranty, or is that installation, or is that usage? And it starts to click for them. I say, so we'll cover our product, right? We'll cover it during this period for this way, after this period this way. For the first 2 years as a roofing contractor, anything that pops up, which I'll tell you, something might or will, that's normal life. Nothing is perfect. Even in the car world, they manufacture thousands of them a day, but sometimes you got a bad tranny, right? But if something pops up and you give us a call, we've been in business for 7 years. I'm speaking as a roofer, been in business for 7 years now. We've made it past the 5-year hump. If you look up the government statistics on the 5-year for roofing contractor, and I'd say 90% of my competition is out of business. But we made it past there. We're here for the long haul. For the first 2 years, anything comes up, call me. We'll send someone out. We'll get it taken care of right away. And then after that, the manufacturer backs us, but you still call us. We'll come out, see if it's something we could do. If it's something that we feel needs to be made a claim with, then we'll help you through that process. And that's a way to ease the homeowner's mind in building that trust with you, because in the homeowner's head, they're already thinking, based on
mm.
contractors in general, that you're not going to be around. So they're looking for the manufacturer to be their savings account. Just like people who don't save money look for a storm and an insurance claim to be their savings account, right? I saved and I replaced my roof when the time came. I didn't have anything, bad, right? And I had of course, everybody starts with the claim process because I had some storm come through and somebody look at it for me and tell me, hey, you've got damage up there, but it wasn't what it was, right? And it's the same thing with the homeowner. You're buying an expensive roof, 20 grand or more, right? Even if it's just 20 grand and I'm 200 grand, it don't matter. It's still a lot of money to a lot of people. It takes a lot of time to make 20 grand. So when they're spending that kind of money, they have to also think, okay, can I afford the house I live in? Can I afford to have somebody come out for whatever they charge to inspect that roof in a year? in 2 years, in 3 years, whatever the maintenance interval is. Just like you do with your heating and air. Every winter, what happens? You pay $75 for a guy to come out, truck roll charge, right? And then you pay him to replace things, fix things, maintain it. So as a homeowner, you have a warranty. The manufacturer will back that warranty based on what's written on that paper. And that's what they'll do. You have a roofing contractor. They will back their warranty based on what's written on their paper. That's what they'll do. And then you have yourself, and you have proper maintenance, proper caretaking of your property. And as long as you understand those things, a warranty is not a factor, just as a contractor is not a factor, because you know the whole process and you're going to hire the right people to do the work. You're going to choose the product you want based on your research, and you're going to maintain it based on just good faith of being a homeowner. And then in the end, if something legitimate happens, warranties are legit. They are good. They're just based on the paper they're written. You know, and as long as you understand that and you have those expectations up front, somebody else might come in and say, oh gosh, you're going to get a 50-year roof. You never have to touch it. It's the last roof you ever put on, right? Sure, they can throw the sales spiel down, but the homeowner who has been educated, master homeowner is now your pupil, right? You educate them on the warranty, real warranty, how it pays out and how it actually works. And it's the same on anything you ever buy. Everything has a warranty. Like you've seen those pots and pans, those Teflon, right? Lifetime warranty. If the Teflon scrapes off, send it in, we'll get you a new one, right? How come everybody goes out and buys a new set of pans? Why aren't they all buying Teflon and mailing them in and getting new pans every time it falls off? Because they used a metal utensil on it. Because they left it on the burner too hot. You know what I mean? And because of that, their warranty is not valid. There are some that'll scream and yell and stomp up and down and be like, but it says lifetime Teflon coverage, right? Yeah, but you didn't follow the terms and conditions of usage for that. Your proper washing and maintenance and use of utensils in that pan. And that's where a legitimate claim is always paid out. But I'd say most of the time, things come down to install, usage, negligence, right, or weather related. It's very rare to see a manufacturing defect with the number of computers, systems, and eyeballs that are in those plants. These computers, they're constantly reading all levels, all processes. And when something goes wrong, that line stops. You know, these plants are smart plants. So the way of where people used to spray the cars down in the factory and it's now all robots, you know, and trying to say the paint is peeling because of, you know, warranty is getting harder and harder because those robots are applying a perfectly mixed paint, perfectly programmed on timing nowadays. The chances of that paint actually peeling because of the robot is slim to none. It's probably peeling because you parked next to a asphalt plant and the excrements that are coming out of the chimney laid on your car. You didn't go take it for a wash, and because of that, it etched and ate your paint. Those are the type of things that people have to understand. The warranty is a great selling technique, but everybody's got lifetime now. So you need to be the expert at warranties, the expert at those legalese, and set expectations. If you set people's expectations correctly, you won't have issues because you'll bring it up. Remember when I mentioned this? Remember when you signed here stating you didn't want to replace your skylight when I recommended it? Here's where you signed and said, I understand that my skylight is over 10 years old and that it may leak shortly because most skylights only get 10 years, right? It may leak, and that's not part of your workmanship warranty. So the more you have in writing, the more acknowledgments and the more expectations you set, the better your conversation is going to be in the future. And the homeowner will say, okay, yeah, what will it cost to fix that? I know. I didn't call you out. I know. I didn't clean the gutter. Because I didn't clean the gutter, the water backed up. Because the water backed up and it was so close to winter, we have an ice dam. Because of the ice dam, our wood swelled. Because our wood swelled, it caused water to go in the attic, stain on the ceiling, molehill in the shingles. What would it cost me to fix that? That's how your conversation needs to go. Because a molehill in the shingles is deck movement. It's not your shingling, unless you butted it too close together and didn't allow for expansion contraction, but then that falls on install. The shingle itself didn't fail. It was two factors that failed. So like I said, that's a loaded question that needs more thought than just, yeah, warranties are nothing but paper, That's not, warranties are good, but they are based on what is written on that paper. And you have to understand and separate yourself from everything's insurance, everything's warranted. Life is just about yelling at people. No, life is about working together, finding solutions, partnering up, understanding what it is you're selling, understanding what it is you're buying, and having those expectations set correctly from the beginning. And yeah, you might lose some sales because people buy into other people's fluff, but your reputation will hold and your word will hold. And that's what matters if you're going to stay in this the long run.
Cool. You have so much value. You bring so much value to the table, and you have so much knowledge to share. I believe, Tom, that even a 3-hour podcast would be less to
Probably.
actually squeeze everything out of you. However, I make a promise to you today that I'm gonna have a next part with you where we will dive deeper into how you actually made out of that phase of your life where your wife supported you doing 3 jobs, and we'll also talk deep into the spirituality and everything. That's my promise to you. We're going to have a part 2. My last question to you is, Tom, that you mentioned that marriage or choosing your life partner isn't sales, and you shouldn't be looking this thing particularly as a sale. And in the beginning you shared that how your wife did everything when you were having that phase, or when you were going through that tough time.
Yeah.
That made me realize that you have such an amazing life partner. Most people, they don't have that these days, and most people run when things go wrong, and they are so much perfect in their words, but when the actual trial comes or when the times go wrong, they are nowhere surrounding you, even if that is your spouse. So what was your secret or your formula to having a life partner like that?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. It was divinely appointed, I want to say. I worked at a car dealer during my college days as a sales rep.
Mhm.
And the coworker of mine was engaged to my wife's mother's best friend. So he
Okay.
knew that my wife was single. He knew I was new to the area because, when you go off to
Mhm.
college, right, you move away from home. And he had her come in as an undercover. So she pretended to be someone that was trying to buy a car. She pretended to be a
Okay.
customer. And then,
Mhm.
I showed her the car, took her on a test drive, had a couple laughs, smiled, right? And then we go in the office and I'm starting the paperwork because she goes, all right, I'll take it. So we start the paperwork. And it was at that point that my coworker comes in and goes, hey, Tom, this is the girl I wanted you to meet, the single one. So hopefully this went well and she'll ask you for your number. If not, at least you got to meet her. And he walked away. And instantly I just cold sweated, froze up. And I'm like, oh, well, nice to meet you and all that. And I was my true self selling the car. And she was her true self looking at it, because we had no preconceived notions. It wasn't a blind date. It wasn't a date whatsoever. It was literally like neutral, proper, getting to know each other, as a salesperson. And she goes, you know what? I'll take your number. I do want to talk to you more. And then we spent weeks just talking on the phone before our next date. And then we just did a short date, right? It's not Netflix and chill or Tinder this or whatever is out there these days. It was a traditional date at the end, a hug or a handshake, right? It wasn't even the first kiss yet. So it was one of those where I took the time to get to know her as a person. She took the
Mhm.
time to get to know me as a person. And
Mhm.
then we even took a step farther. Like, I got to know her mom really well, her brother really well. We went to like family reunions, stuff like that, to gauge the family dynamic,
Mhm.
gauge how people, how they act around each other, how they react to each other, to see what type of programming she would have
Mhm.
in certain situations. Because whenever all families together, it's a giant battle, right? Everybody has something to say about somebody as soon as they lift the carpet and they see the dust. So in those environments, you get to see how somebody's going to react to a situation that's tough. And I got to see her react to a lot of things. Her mom got in an accident.
Mhm.
I saw some, deaths during the time in her family. And just the way that she stepped up, helped make the arrangements, or made sure she was at the hospital all night, the caring nature, right? And then when she got sick, I went in and I took care of her. We're still dating, right? I could have easily been like, well, I'm going to go date someone else now that you're sick. I want to go out Saturday night. I don't want to sit with you. But I went over there and I sat with her and I fed her chicken noodle soup and I watched a movie with her, while she was miserable. And she got to see the type of person I was, when it came to the nurturing side. Now, our marriage isn't perfect. There are arguments at times, but you figure out the proper way to negotiate through an argument as opposed to just screaming at each other, running out the door, slamming the door. So when times do get tough, I'll throw out a example that I saw once. I had a person's wife that said, I'm going in for a treatment next week. It was a superficial treatment, right? And the other person had just been laid off and told this other wife, well, we're going to have to cancel that. We don't have the funds right now until I secure where the funds are coming in from. And the fight, the breakup, and everything over that treatment was unbelievable. And that's when I realized that people are selling each other, portraying an image, but aren't getting a deep connection for when, the good times are good. But when the bad times hit, how are you going to react? How are you going to partner with your partner and move through it together? Are you going to, like most of the people I work with, the others might not work, right? Might be stay at home or whatnot. And I had my wife be a stay at home because she loved it. Loved raising the kid and being able around the house. And now she's going to be doing her biofeedback, stuff. And when she went out and found another job, and then she talked to people in town and got me side jobs and things while I was looking for my next one, right? Like, that's the type of partner you want. Somebody that's going to lift you up and get into the weeds with you and help pull them out so that your garden can grow again. Not just step back and say, hurry up, we need those cucumbers. Are you going to help? Heck no, I ain't helping. I came into this with you with money. I'm either leaving or you're going to get this money flowing back in right now. That mentality has to go away. You have to be in the position where whatever upbringing you had or whatever you went through, remove it and put yourself in the position of, I'm not making anything. Maybe I'm just detailing cars and I have enough to cover food. I don't even have a car. I'm walking to detail cars for people. And then eventually you'll have a car to drive to detail cars. Then you'll have a van with a pressure washer and a scraper and a whole detail setup in it. Then you'll have a detail office with one garage, then 10 garages, then a team of detailers, right? But you always had to start with walking with a bucket with soap, water, and a brush, door to door, to try to figure out what you're going to do with life. And it's the same thing with your partner. You need them to come from that humble point of, we got nothing. Now let's build our life together. And yes, there's going to be bumps in the road. Yes, we might lose everything, but we'll get through that. It's nothing. We got to go get assistance or go sleep in a tent somewhere for a little bit. We'll do whatever it takes. Have you ever read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No, I have heard about it, but haven't got a chance to read
It's an
that.
excellent read. So the author of that book lived in a person's basement and didn't have a job. His wife didn't have a job. They had no money. The persons who he lived in the basement wouldn't give him food or nothing. He had to go out and make his way. And now he's, a multimillionaire, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars and property everywhere and all those courses and books. But he started from those humble beginnings. He didn't come from a bad family. He came from family with money, but him and his wife set out to make their own life and not depend on everyone else's handouts. He could have gone to his dad. He could have gone to his rich dad, his poor dad, right? Borrowed money, done everything the easy route, but he took that hard lesson route with his wife. They built it together and they're still together. When I don't know, like all those old stories and every single book out there is, you get married and you leave your mother and father, you leave the nest, you go, you build your own nest. They don't buy you a nest, you build the nest. And that's what people don't realize is they're not courting anymore. They're not taking the time to truly know somebody on a non-superficial level. Like, instead of going to that fancy steakhouse and drive your Ferrari there with your first date, go to McDonald's. Not that that's healthy or nothing, but I'm saying, like, go to that inexpensive place, make a picnic basket, show her that, okay, yeah, she knows you might have a flashy car because that's how you met, but now
Mhm.
you're showing her that you're a real person and you want her to see you, for the good and the bad that you are. And you change each other through mental alchemy, through a partnership, and you grow together and you become better people together, which then, and this is the whole like point of it all, is you begin to cancel generational curses. You break them. A generational curse is everything. It's from the way you speak to your kid, from the way you speak to your wife, from the way you either bring your dog in the house to sleep in the bed with you, or you chain it outside and you throw it scraps every now and then. That's generational curses. And you also have heavy metals and everything else, microbiomes. There's other curses that come from generations as well. And I could go into all that detail. But you begin to break those curses that came from the bloodline. And now you're creating a source driven, happy family that has now raised the vibrations of population. That your kids are going to go out there, get married the same way, and start to break another curse and start to move up and move up. And we'll have a
Awesome.
better society. You know, over 100 years ago, what was it, 130 years ago, we were still using the restroom in a wood box into a hole in the ground. And look at where we are today. And that was just because people finally said, enough. Let's work together. Let's not go in a hole in the ground. Let's create something that we can have with water taking it out to the hole. So we don't have to sit outside, right? And they worked together and they created it because they collaborated. They helped each other. It wasn't about who made the better hole. It was about, can we make a universal hole that everybody can go in so we don't have to go outside anymore? And look at where we are. Now we have TVs, cameras, podcasts, and everything else. But if it was, I patented the hole, nobody else can dig a hole in the ground, we would still be going in a hole in the ground because nobody would have ever said, let's change this. You know, there's so many stories out there like that, with toilet paper to toothpaste to everything else, you know, where they
I think you
finally
have
made a
done
decision.
great in this podcast, and the answer and everything you have just shared. I have learned so much from you, and you have still so many things to share. And I have tried, like, this is the only podcast that is going to be around 2 hours in length, and we have been connected for the last 3 hours, I would say, and I have enjoyed every second of this, every moment of this. I have learned something
I have
from
two,
you.
thanks.
And you have so many things to share. I'm definitely going to have a part two with you. In just 2 or 3 lines, are there any signing off notes or advice you have for the people who are watching or listening to the podcast?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of lines. I'm trying to think of a proper one, you know, that can send them off with something. I
Yeah.
guess
So
to
we can
sum it all up,
end this up in a
yeah,
nice way.
sum it
Yeah.
all up.
Sums it all up. Yeah.
Yeah, just take that first step and work on yourself. Get to know yourself first. Now, strip away all of the societal programming, ego, everything that you were raised with. Sit, quiet your mind, stop working, stop thinking, sit down, pull yourself in between your ears, in your head, and just feel and breathe and release. And then once you know yourself, the world is your oyster, right? You know, it's a stage. You can do and be whoever you want, but you have to know who you are first. And once you know who you are, the rest of the stuff just comes easy. It flows because you'll do what you want to do that you enjoy doing. And when you do what you enjoy doing, you know, like they say, you never work a day in your life. And you constantly learn, constantly grow. Your destiny's out there. It's just waiting for you to come get it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Thomas. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I hope the audience would do so as well. I hope we stay in touch and we'll definitely have a part two. Thank you for being on the show, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.